So, this evening, I want to start by addressing something that has always kind of annoyed me about Holy Week. That might not be a great way to start, but I think it is. I think it is for today. And it's the thing that kind of doesn't make any sense to me in Holy Week. Our math, to my mind, doesn't add up. So the way that we talk about the kind of crucifixion and the cross, I feel like the days just don't quite add together. So we've got kind of Friday tomorrow, where we'll come to the kind of classic crucifixion scene, which we normally think of maybe somewhere around the kind of afternoon on the Friday, and then Jesus rises again on the Sunday kind of morning. Now you might be thinking, that's not too bad there, what's the problem, Callum? Well, there's a number of references throughout Jesus' own words and parts of Scripture that talk about 3 days, like so in Matthew, where Jesus talks about 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Now I don't know about you, but my math isn't amazing, but I can't add up 3 full days and nights from Friday through to Sunday, because you've got maybe kind of Friday afternoon and evening, so that's 1 night and half a day. You've got a full day on Saturday, you've got 1 night on the kind of Saturday night, and then you're at a morning. That's like what? 2 days maybe? A push, a day and a half? The math to my mind doesn't quite add up. And I think I was kind of looking into this as I was coming to today's service and thinking about it a little bit, some of the different kind of ways that people talk about it. And one of the things that I think is always quite important to note to begin with is how we talk about days is actually kind of different. From my understanding of the kind of Jewish day back in this time, it actually started in the evening. So the start of the day, just like you might know the classic lines from Genesis, there was evening, there was morning, the first day. The actual day starts at the dusk, as night falls, as the day goes down, that's the beginning of our day. And it kind of goes on from there. Now there's a couple of different sort of theories, different people are hypothesizing exactly the day and the time of the crucifixion. We don't exactly know precisely. But the one thing that probably puts together is that it's likely by about this time on the Thursday, if the math kind of adds up, that Jesus was quite possibly, or at least if the night had gone down by now, was quite possibly dead by this point in our crucifixion story. We're at the start of this period of 3 days and 3 nights, where Jesus is dead and in the tomb. And that's kind of what I want to think about a little bit this evening, because maybe something that we don't tend to talk about all that much in the whole of the wonder of the kind of Holy Week run and the different parts of the Passion is the bit that we maybe don't always think about quite so much, these 3 days. Now, I'm not really looking to hypothesize about Jesus and exactly what happened in that regard here. There are other people who can debate theology on that as much as you want. But I want to talk a little bit about the disciples. And imagine for a moment what it would have been like for them in those 3 days and nights. What would that time have felt like? So I want you to just kind of imagine for a moment, try and put yourself in their shoes. Think of all that is going on and the kind of emotional turmoil that they must find themselves in. On one hand, they'll be thinking back to all the good times that they had with Jesus, travelling with him for years, spending pretty much every day with this man, learning from him, hearing his wise words and teaching and guidance, and words that were like prophetic and just you couldn't understand how he had so much understanding. And then on top of that, on top of the wise words, because there are a lot of wise people, but you've got these incredible miracles that no one else could come close to doing. Miracles that make you think back to the time of Elijah and of Moses. Miracles of feeding of thousands of people, of those who had been lame for their entire life, suddenly being able to walk, of people rising from the dead. Unimaginable things. And you are present there for all of it. And you're utterly convinced that this guy has something special. This guy might just be the Messiah. You're willing to follow him. You're willing to trust him. You're willing to put your hope in him. And then we come to this week. It's Holy Week. This week as we run up to the crucifixion. And what do we have amongst this week? Well, one of the guys that you probably knew as a good mate, a friend, someone that you had spent years with most of the time, out of nowhere possibly, suddenly betrays the very thing that you put your hope in, the very person that you put your hope in. And this guy's come out of nowhere and he's just given up on it all. And then from there, this Jesus that you've put your trust and your faith in, he's being arrested, he's being led off, he's being taken to trial, and ultimately he's being crucified. He is being killed in the most horrendous of ways. Can you imagine the struggle and the sorrow and the pain of being in that kind of place with no clue for what comes next? All this thing, it looked like it was building to something great. I mean, as you came into the city, there was a parade and people were loving it. And now, there's just this sense of emptiness and loss, and uncertainty and confusion and sorrow. There have been a lot of dark days in human history. But I would suggest to say that the death of Jesus and these 3 days that follow may be the darkest days that history has ever seen. Jesus, God incarnate, came to earth and was killed by the very people he came to save. That might have sounded a little bit intense. But I wanted to talk about something that we don't talk about quite so much in church. And that's the fact that sometimes life doesn't quite work out the way that we hope. We find ourselves in places and circumstances and situations just like the disciples do here, where everything seems to have gone wrong, where the things that we hoped for have fallen apart in our hands, where we find ourselves in a place of loss and sorrow and pain. And that's okay. That's okay. It's this weird thing that we do in church sometimes, and I think I'm guilty of it, and I see other people being guilty of it too, where we have this need to pretend that everything is always okay. You know that little thing, that mask, that friendly, cheery mask that we love to put on, where we walk in and everything is fine, and there might be stuff going on in the background that we're trying to ignore, but no, we're here because we've got our game face on, we're in church. We're good, we're happy, we're righteous, because that's what righteous, good Christians do. They're happy and they've got it all together. But honestly, truthfully, that's not always the case. And I think we need to acknowledge that sometimes, that life can sometimes seem to fall apart around us and we find ourselves uncertain, confused and lost, just like these disciples did right here in these 3 days. These 3 unknown days. There's words that Jesus speaks and that we find in Mark's Gospel, ones that have always struck a chord with me. He says, "Healthy people do not need a doctor, sick people do. I have come not to those who think they are righteous, but those who know they are sinners." We are not called as perfect people, and it's not the job of a Christian to be perfect, or at least pretend that we are. We are called as broken people and as sinners. People who have got lost along the way, got caught up in ourselves in that journey, or get caught up in the brokenness of the world around us. And I think we need to start by being real and acknowledging that, being honest with where we are at in our lives. Not maybe where we want to be, or not the things that we like people think about us, but rather an honest truth of where are we at. And particularly in times when there is struggle, when there is challenge, when there is uncertainty, to be honest about that, especially with God. To not pray prayers that are just saying the words that we think we're supposed to say, but rather prayers of honest truth, being real with where we are, and entrusting that place and that vulnerability into God's hands. The scriptures are filled with people who find themselves in situations that they don't quite know what to do, and a cry of help goes out to God. One fantastic one from Psalm 86. Listen to me, Lord, and answer me, for I am helpless and weak. Save me from death, because I am loyal to you. Save me, for I am your servant and I trust you. You are my God, so be merciful to me. I pray to you all day long. Sorrow and pain are a part of life. We can pretend that they're not there, but that doesn't make them go away. We can pretend we aren't feeling the things we're feeling, but that doesn't make that pain disappear. We have to start by being honest and real with where we find ourselves, and honest with God. That is where healing so often starts, when we entrust, when we place ourselves in a vulnerable position before God, acknowledging the struggles, the uncertainties, and the challenges that we face. And from there, we have to acknowledge that we are not alone. If you think to this story and think to the disciples, where do we find themselves? Where do we find them on resurrection morning, as Mary and Joanna kind of run into the room to tell them the exciting good news that they've seen Jesus? Where do we find the disciples? They're huddled together. Just a little room. They may have lost a lot, but at least they still seem to have each other. And that is a valuable and important thing for us to acknowledge in church. Church should be a place of community, of support to one another, of a helping hand to those who maybe are as we journey together into the things that God calls us to. There is wonderful support to be found by other Christians along the way. And I think we should encourage ourselves and challenge ourselves to look for opportunities to help and to support. Not to force our way into situations that we're maybe not welcome in, but to offer what we can. And put ourselves in places of vulnerability, and to be willing to trust each other. Community only works if we are willing to trust. If we are willing to trust each other. You're not alone. And not just are you not alone in a sense of church and others around us, but in an even more wonderful sense. As Paul would speak of in Romans, that the Spirit dwells within us. Or as Jesus would say at the end of his call to the Great Commission, is call to the disciples to go and do the work that he has entrusted them with. He would end with these famous words, and surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. Now, I'm not wise enough to speak to the exact kind of theological logistics of what happened in those 3 days for the disciples. Okay, I don't really know how that works with them and God and all the practicalities of that. But the thing I do know, the promise I can give to each of you, is those very words of Jesus right there, the words that we find in Scripture. A promise of a God with us. Of a God who would send his Spirit to dwell in us. And call us forward. That in the most desperate and broken and confusing moments of life that we find ourselves in, God remains present
with us. Even if everyone else seems to have disappeared, God remains. And He beckons us forward. He calls us into the things of Him. God is with us, regardless of the darkness around us. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for His name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for You are with me. Your rod and staff, they comfort me. And the final thing I would say to the challenges and the struggles that we sometimes find ourselves in life, the final lesson I would take from these 3 days, is that no matter how dark the Saturday, there is still the dawn of the Sunday morning, the hope that comes beyond. Now, hindsight is a wonderful thing. For all the sorrow of the 3 days, the disciples just did not realise what was coming next. I mean, they maybe had hints of it along the way as Jesus had taught and spoken with them, but it seems to be that they just didn't quite get it. They didn't quite get the bigger picture that was going on. And how often is that us? We get so caught up in the moment, in the daunting things that we find in front of ourselves, that we struggle to take that step back, that step out to see the grander story and the grander picture. And I think sometimes as well, we actually can't see it until we look back at all. There are times in my life where in the moment it felt like a horrid time of wrestling and challenge and struggle. But as I look back, I see God's hand at work in it. And I didn't really recognise it at the time, and I didn't recognise the grander story that was coming out at the time. But that doesn't mean God isn't working. Just because you don't see it, just because you don't recognise it, just because it doesn't fall exactly as you'd hope it to be, doesn't mean God isn't at work. He always is. He is always moving and shaping and building things to His kingdom and for His purposes. And our call, our challenge, is to be people who walk by faith and not by sight. But that is an easy thing to say and a hard thing to do. It's easy, it's a nice phrase, walk by faith. But when it comes down to the realities of life, I know I, and I'm sure others, can so quickly go to that place where we just try and bear it all in ourselves, where we just think, no, I'll carry it, it's fine. Where we just think, if I was strong enough, a bit more, I could do it. And we just power our way through on our own. In the hardest things of life, we just decide that we're just going to try and bear them, that we're determined not to let go. Well, I would encourage you tonight to learn to let go and trust God. To put your faith and hope in Him, not in yourselves and not in your circumstance. Now, and don't miss me or don't mishear me in this. I'm not calling us to inactivity. I'm not sitting there and say, God, you got this, and then just going to step back and have a nice kind of relax on the couch. Faith shouldn't drive us to lethargy, but rather the opposite. It calls us to action that is based on trust. To decisions that are not just about us and where we see the world, but rather looking out and hearing from God and leaning into His Word and trusting those around us. A call that is grander and bigger than where we find ourselves. Because here's the thing. Life might not always work out the way that we hope or want it to. Although there are some times that I can look back on and I can see God's hand at work and I can clearly see how that bit fits into this bit. To be honest, there are other struggles and there are other pains in there that I'm not clear why that was even there at all. There are answers that we just don't always get to our questions. But we're called to faith regardless. We're called to trust regardless of all the certainty, because we don't get it all the time, at least not in this world, at least not this side of eternity. But the good news, the great news, the hope that we find in the resurrection is that this story doesn't end here. It doesn't stop. It keeps on going, and our resurrection is pointing to this glorious eternity that God is beckoning and inviting us all into. As we find in Revelation 21, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people. And God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." Sorrow and pain and struggle are things that will be part of our stories. And that is sometimes a hard truth to face. But we must also take heart even in these times of pain. We must also remember that we can be honest and truthful with God about where we are at, knowing that He is present there with us and calling us onwards to His work and to His kingdom, which is more glorious and more wonderful than anything we can begin to comprehend right here and right now. So even in the darkest of the 3 days, there is always the hope of the Sunday morning.